MrBeast FM, where business comes to talk.
It's the morning drive. This is MrBeast FM. My name's Tim Elliott. Now, in this segment this morning, we will be continuing our kind of diversity in investing discussion with active versus passive investing and making the distinction as well. But I wanted to start, James Thomas is here, independent financial consultant. I forgot to introduce you because
Good morning.
I got excited. Nice to see
Very
you.
excited.
Because I think this is a really good story for a number of reasons. I mean, MrBeast, to you and I, is who's that?
Afraid
kind
so.
of.
I know the name, but have I watched any content?
Have you ever watched
Don't
MrBeast?
think I have.
I haven't either, and it's not something that appeals to me. My kids have kind of grown up with MrBeast online, obviously. So that's in a different space. That's not really the point of this story. MrBeast, for anybody who lives under a rock, is the world's biggest YouTuber. Something like 450 million, 460 million subscribers, something like that.
500 million subscribers.
Really big deal online. And the whole kind of point of MrBeast really now, this is where he's kind of at, is that it's about challenging yourself. And that's kind of his thing. Lots of other stuff, but that's sort of his central function, if you like. And it's interesting because he does lots of different things. There's different businesses. He does burgers and loads of stuff. There's a theme park in Riyadh as well. So clearly a big deal. But he's now entering the Fintech space, right?
Yes.
I sent you this story, and I thought I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. So he's got a company called Beast Industries. Does lots of stuff, as I said. They've just announced the acquisition of Step, which is a banking app for teens and like young adults in the US. So he tweeted, still uses Twitter, bizarrely, tweeted that he kind of cited his own upbringing as the primary driver. And he said, there's the post, this was the day before yesterday, I think it was. I'm so excited to share that we're acquiring the financial services app at Step. Nobody taught me about investing, building credit, or managing money when I was growing up. That's exactly why we're joining forces with Step. I want to give millions of young people the financial foundation I never had. Lots to share soon. And then, smiley face. So a cynic would say, lots of businesses, good opportunity for you to make even more money. But the other side of me thinks, I relate to that because nobody taught me about investing or building credit or managing money. And I'm hazarding a guess, Mr. Financial Consultant, it's probably the same with you.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, the easy response is to be very cynical.
It is.
How much money is he going to make out of this? However, as I think this is we're well into double figures now with these discussions.
Yeah.
And as I hope has come across with them, we're trying to make them educational and give people information about a subject matter that is very passionate to me. But one that you absolutely hit the nail on the head. Did I have any basic financial education at school? None.
No, zero.
Zero. There was maths, there was statistics, there was business studies. There was all this, frankly, when you're a teenager, stuff that...
Do you care?
Did you really care about
didn't.
trigonometry, about all of this? And I can't even remember the terms now. That's how impactful they were.
We had log books. Remember sines and cosines
Sines,
and
cosines,
logs and all that? I still don't really know what that is.
I'm sure they're really useful, but I've still yet to find what that is. Now I'm sure people are screaming and I say, well, of course it's obvious, it's for X, Y, and Z. However, all of us, rather than just some, would have immediate exposure once we were deemed to be adults, and even not even as adults, but as teenagers and above, managing their personal finances. And I think that's why a lot of people end up in very difficult positions with debts, with finances getting out of control, because they simply do not understand and do not know what it is they're doing, and why should they? Why would they when they've had absolutely no education? So this app, if it can offer any education, and I'm sure, and as I say, I haven't been on it, and I suspect it's probably great for full-grown adults as well as young adults.
I guess it would be, yeah.
Anything that can help to educate people can only be a good thing.
See, the point is, I think that there's always an argument, and it's a good argument, that the point of, growth comes from making mistakes and, learning lessons. And there's an attitude, and maybe there's something in that if you get in debt and then you really understand the pressure of being in debt, and you learn that debt isn't necessarily a bad thing. We all have to take on debt in some form, whether it's a car loan or a mortgage or whatever. You have to learn to be able to sort of bear the brunt of that, I suppose, and it helps you to strive and survive. And I get that argument, but wouldn't it be nice if somebody gave you a little bit of forewarning, is the argument.
Yeah, but again, to interrupt you there, that 100%, as we've discussed, there's good debt and there's bad debt.
Yeah.
What you've just described is good debt.
It's a sensible debt.
Sensible debt. You understand what you're doing. You need a car. You haven't got the full value of that as cash in the bank. So therefore, you take a loan over a fixed period of time. After that, the car is yours, and it's very clear. House, similar, and in a bigger scale, bigger time period. But I think certainly my recollection of when I went to university, the Freshers' Week, there were stands with various banks, various credit card providers. Just take our card. What could be simpler? Sign this form. 5 days later, because old-fashioned, it'd be posted to you, and then off you go. You got a credit limit of £5,000.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant! That's the year sorted then. But then no one ever then said, well, do you realise because it's unsecured debt? What does unsecured debt mean? Why is that different from secured debt? Don't know. But if this, and I haven't looked at the app, but if this is the sort of thing it can educate people on, and we've gone straight into debt, but that's sadly the thing that most people get caught up with.
It is.
To explain to them that isn't free money on that credit card. It's money that needs to be repaid, and if it's not repaid immediately, it very quickly can spiral out of control. And I saw it at university that people were. They'd go to the student union or wherever it may be and tap, 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 or swipe as it was then. And very quickly that credit limit was reached, and suddenly there was a very high interest rate, perhaps 20, 30, 40, even 50%. And quickly then they were getting late payment fees. And then they were getting fees for overreaching the credit limit. And suddenly this debt had gone from what appeared to be a great thing to really frightening.
It's a real pressure on people, and that's something you have to learn. So
Yes.
I get the learning financial lessons are important, but the fact is you have no training at all.
No.
It's something that it's very rarely in school curricula.
Very, and I also hope the flip side is there, that the benefits of financial planning, i.e. the how to save for your future. When you're perhaps 15, 18, 20-year-old, retirement is such a abstract thought that it's going to be so far in the future. But it's, as we have discussed again, it's not. That 40-year time period, and again, it sounds perhaps ridiculous to say it, but it goes very, very quickly. And as we have said,
as well.
And it speeds up. And as we have discussed, the sooner you start, the better. And if it can educate people on the flip side of that compounding of interest, that make it work for you, and start small, but start and get going, and how that can benefit you in your future, then it can only be a good thing.
It's the ideal client for you, isn't it? If you get somebody that's in their first job and they decide to sit down with somebody like you and, sort out their future, and if they stick to that.
Yeah, there's nothing more.
Isn't that a great thing?
Yeah, again, from my point of view, and again, perhaps it sounds very sad, but it's not. But it's someone who takes control of their finances at that age. It makes me feel very positive that their future is going to be sorted, because they've taken those steps so early on that they're not going to be faced with that panic at age 50, 55. Oh no, I haven't done anything. What am I going to do? Suddenly the amount they need to save each month is astronomical. The timescales, the risk that they then need to take. They can take those risks. They can go into some of the more aggressive shares or funds at that age, because they've got the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything is on their side.
The time and the energy and the
And
will.
if they then understand, everything will work out for them. They're not going to have to rely on the state. They're not going to have to rely on the bank of mum and dad. All of these things become, it's that virtuous circle.
It's interesting, this app. So we're talking about MrBeast and his involvement, if you like, in Step, which is a banking app. He's essentially bought it, but it has a number of backers and investors in the app, and there are already some celebs in there. Will Smith is involved, for example. Justin Timberlake is involved. The basketball star Steph Curry is involved. The Chainsmokers, the band, are involved. So it's almost like there's some momentum here as well from people to back things. The cynical side is, okay, there's a great financial opportunity.
Assume, again, if he's got a ballpark 500 million followers, then clearly, even if he gets 10% of those, 1% of those to sign up, that's an enormous cohort of people to get onto an app that many, other banks or institutions or apps would, bend over backwards to secure. So that, as you rightly say, that could be the cynical side. But I'm hopeful that this will, if it can only educate a few people into the benefits of financial planning from an early age, then that's a real positive.
Yeah, I think so. So that's kind of the point of the story. I think it's interesting. It's something worth following.
Yes.
MrBeast does lots of things. He's got this thing called a chocolate brand. It's called Feastables. That's actually where he makes most of his money. It's not YouTube anymore. It's his chocolate brand.
Wow.
That makes money. And I think he wants to launch a mobile network, a bit like Ryan Reynolds did. So there are all sorts of plays in different areas, different sort of verticals, if you like.
Perhaps if I can, I'll download the app if it lets me, as someone at my grand old age, and have a play with it and report back in the next podcast.
It would be interesting to see what it does now, and then a little bit down the road when MrBeast, I guess, has more involvement.
MrBeasts it.
If he does beast it, then I'm not even sure that's what you do with a banking app, but maybe that's the best way to put it. I'm not sure.
Adds his personal touch to it. Yeah.
Well, it's just a really interesting news story. I think. Anyway, look, let's talk about active and passive investing. And one of the things today, you made a point, sent me a message yesterday, talking about the Magnificent Seven.
Yes.
From the S&P 500. So the background of why we wanted to get into active versus passive investing, and we'll define those in a minute.
It was just again another headline I'd seen. Following on from previous conversations about the how key diversification is to one's investment plan. So it kind of follows on from what we've been talking about in a slightly abstract way. But and someone had pointed out that the S&P 500, so the Standard & Poor's 500, the leading 500 shares in the US, that 35% of that market is now occupied by 7 companies, i.e. those Magnificent Seven. Yeah. So they've, rather than, so again, when we're talking about diversification, we're talking, wide ranging, but suddenly you've actually got this huge concentration of assets and of value in only 7 companies. So when people are thinking, oh, it's a nice diversified, what it is, if you've got the other 493, because that's then 65%, but that's 7%. 7 companies are making up 35% of that. So you can see it's suddenly very skewed.
And very skewed to tech.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the other key component of that. It's not that it's 7 companies that are from variety. Then it wouldn't be so bad if there's an oil company, a bank, a pharmaceutical, whatever it might be, a supermarket. No, that it's not. They're all very much in a similar sector, maybe not doing the same thing, but very similar things. Yeah. And therefore that diversification discussion becomes even more pertinent because they are very clustered in a one very similar area.
I mean, it might be that that's what you're looking for.
It may well be.
Because you believe in, the 7 are, let's just run through them quickly. Obviously, Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Alphabet, Meta, right? All tech, And there's crossover between all of those in
Indeed.
one way or another. So similar and yet different at the same time. And I get that. People who scream like, "Oh, Apple's not like Amazon," but there are crossovers.
Yes.
The point is, it's all in the tech sector. But it's understanding that if that's what you want, that's fine. It's got nothing to do with anybody but you. But if you're looking at being
Indeed.
diversified,
It's just
as
to
you
point
would
out
prescribe.
Just to be aware that when we're talking about diversification, and there is a very much cluster of companies making up a big proportion in a very similar area. So yes, and again, there's not to say anything bad with that, but if we are sticking to some of the fundamental principles of financial planning, you just need to be aware, which is why maybe you step back and rather than do the S&P, look at something even more broad, like the MSCI World Index.
Yeah, okay.
So even though it will still have that component, it will be a smaller component because you're not just focusing on the US, you've then got UK, Europe, emerging markets, Asia within that as well. So again, it reduces that exposure to that one very concentrated sector.
Yeah, unless you want the exposure.
Unless you want it, which is great.
And this is the point. This is the distinction, isn't it? That, it's about research. It's about looking, beyond the headlines.
Yes, beyond the headlines. Just to say, lifting the bonnet.
Exactly, to consider what you are actually investing in, to understand that. And it all goes to, in the end, it comes back round to this kind of common sense approach of, I've done my research, I'm happy with this,
Yeah.
I'm
It
okay
may well
with
be
this
that these
risk or
companies,
not.
there's a reason they are so valuable.
Oh, this is not a reflection on those companies
it's
at
nothing
all.
to do with the companies, and indeed
it's
you could
understanding.
argue, are they going to carry on? Well, there's every chance that they will do.
Yeah,
I can't see us moving away from these things. Arguably, we're probably going to move closer towards them, but that's still not a reason just to blindly invest. It's just to consider and say, is this for me? Am I happy with this exposure into this particular area, into that degree, when I may have thought that I was being a much broader brush approach to my investment strategy?
Yeah. We're not going to have time to get into all the details today,
No.
but I think it's important to get into, we're not going to have time to get into many of the details, if I'm honest, but it's important to distinguish, isn't it, between, because this leads you to a discussion about style.
It does.
Of investing and how you want to be as an investor, whether you are, essentially there are two styles. There are many more within these two categories, but essentially you're active or you're passive.
Yes.
Really. And I think I'll leave it to you to define
my
the two.
definition would be to be passive would simply be to invest into that, picking on that, the S&P 500.
Yes.
So you simply pick a fund that tracks exactly what the S&P does for good or bad.
Yeah.
And if it's made up of those 500 companies, it invests in the proportion that those companies make up the S&P. And then every day it will rebalance to make sure you stay, and it's all done by the fund. You are completely passive in that. You have no interaction with it. And nor
It's
just
really minimal management.
Minimal management. And the fund manager, again, he or she, they do very little other than to say, right, the percentage in those companies has moved by this fraction, we will sell that and buy that to keep the proportions exactly as per the makeup of the S&P.
Yeah.
An active investor is very different, because the fund manager then is saying, well, actually, they may actually even more overweight in those 7 companies because they feel that there's more opportunity, there's more growth, there's more return to be had. Or they may take a very different strategy and say, no, we're going to steer well clear and find opportunity in the other 493 companies and go overweight in those. And actually be picking shares based on their analysis of those companies.
Right.
So you would have potentially a very different makeup to your fund because of the way that fund has been managed.
So a lot more work going on.
Not by you personally as the investor, but by the managers of the fund. Yes,
Exactly.
a lot more work. So they would be having analysts go and speak to those companies, deep diving into their accounts, working out what their projections are for how those companies are going to perform, or how they believe they're going to perform.
So for you as an investor, potentially, and if you're comfortable with this, that's a different matter, potentially more risk, potentially higher fees because professional management fees may come into place, I guess, in this instance.
Typically, yes.
Typically.
The idea is that those extra fees buy you the outperformance because their expertise would have found opportunities that would not be missed, but would be just part of that wider index. Whereas there may be, used to say, pick the 493, there's every chance that there's a good percentage of those companies that if you were to increase your exposure, if they were just to keep the math simple, maybe 1% of the index, and you actually put 2% in there, and they then outperformed, then obviously your return is going to be much better than, and they will outperform the index.
Yeah, and that's
the opportunity that you're buying and the cost for those extra fees. Now the passive will say, well, that many times out of 10, the just buying the index wins. But the active investors would also say many times we will win because our expertise will enable us to find those opportunities that simply by buying the index you will not have benefit of. So, and again, my perhaps sitting on the fence would be, well, let's take advantage of both. Let's have some passive funds, but also have some active manage so that you're able to blend those two, reduce the overall costs, but also get the benefit from some active management and some passive.
There's an element of this as well, I think, that comes down to personal interest, isn't there?
There is.
Some people they're up for this. This is their thing, and it's something that you want to take a more active role in.
More active role in.
For other people, it's just. I mean, for me, I'm interested, but how interested am I? If I'm really honest. So
which is where most
that
people
as well.
sit.
Probably.
Which is why, as we've discussed, we're bringing in lots of different conversations. That core and satellite approach. Probably the core would be largely passively managed. And then you'd have the active managers, the satellites around that add that extra spice, that extra return that you're looking for to just to boost your returns that the portfolio can give.
Okay, so active investing, more hands-on approach to outperform the market.
Yeah.
Kind of. And passive investing, replicating market performance, a little bit less management.
Yes.
Kind of the way it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Your challenge, should you choose to accept it, is download at Step.
I will. Next week we'll start again, and I'll tell you what I found out.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Actually, and maybe we should campaign to get financial education in schools. Maybe we could start a campaign now, and get the people to rise up and teach our children about money, or maybe not.
It would save a lot of
save
heartache in the future.
It would later on in life. For now, James Thomas is an independent financial consultant. I always like talking to you. Thanks, James.
Likewise. Thank you.
Appreciate it.